description of the God seekers continues. Far wandering seekers on the eternal's path, brought to these quiet founts their spirits' thirst. These were the quiet spots where these world-naked hermits had settled down and had founded certain peace and calm. And to these quiet founts, seekers, thirsty seekers, who had been wandering far and wide, they repaired to these spots and spent the treasure of a silent hour, bathed in the purity of the mild gaze. They would spend a quiet and a silent hour here, and that hour was their treasure. They cherished that treasure, and they were bathed in the purity of the mild gaze of the spirit, that uninsistent ruled them from its peace. This gaze reigned but did not compel. It was not insistent, but from its status of peace, it ruled them, and by its influence found the ways of calm, not by external imposition, but by influence, a quiet influence. It established ways of calm, ways of life in the background of calm. The infants of the monarchy of the world in the ancient days, the princes, the children of kings, grew up in the hermitages of the rishis, of the hermits, and they are now described. The infants of the monarchy of the world, the heroic leaders of a coming time, king children, nurtured in that spacious air. There was an air of freedom. There was not that protocol. There was not always that attention from attendants, courtiers. But the children were free. In the forests, king children, nurtured in that spacious air, like lions gambolling in sky and drum, just like the lions roll about and play in the open sky under the sun. They played about, received half-consciously their godlike stamp. As the children, the princes, the royal children grow, they unconsciously imbibe the godlike nature of these hermits, of these rishis. That godlike stamp is not imposed on them, but they receive it half-consciously. formed in the type of the high thoughts they sang. These children, youngsters, are taught to say prayers, hymns, celebrating heroic deeds and couched in high thoughts. Now as they sing, their character gets formed in the type of the thoughts they sing. They don't sing mechanically. They are taught to follow the meaning and participate in what they sing. Formed in the type of the high thoughts they sang, they learned the wide magnificence of mood that makes us comrade of the cosmic urge. That is, they opened up to the universal urges. They were not cooped up in their small egoistic shells, but in the magnificence of the cosmic urge, they became companions of that urge, no longer chained to their small separate selves, plastic and firm beneath the eternal hand, the higher hand, met nature with a bold and friendly clasp. They were not afraid. They met nature, means even the wild animals and things who are part of nature, and served in her the power that shapes her works. Unconsciously and consciously they become aware that there is a power in nature that rules, and they served in her the power that shapes her works. One soul to all. Now further description of the sages. One soul to all and free from narrowing bonds. These sages refuse to be bound by narrow considerations, what we would call today groupism. They refused. They were one soul to all, large like a continent of warm sunshine, in wide equalities, impartial joy. These sages breathed for God's delight in things. They had no personal, individual interests to serve. They were equal. They were impartial in sharing their joy. Just like a warm sunshine spreads out equally on all, they were impartial to all, and they lived not for their own salvation, but for God's delight in things, to participate in the delight of God in this creation, assisting the slow entries of the gods. It wasn't in their charge. They had to assist and look after the growth of these royal children who are being educated in the hermitages. And what do? They just do not give knowledge, but assisting the slow entries of the gods, the divine powers. They enter into these young children who are there carefree, playing courageously on intimacy, terms of intimacy with nature, the gods are slowly entering into them. And these supervising sages, assisting the slow entries of the gods, sowing in young minds the immortal thoughts they lived. These sages lived in high immortal thoughts. Their concepts, their ideas, their ideals were of a very high order, and they planted these high thoughts in the young minds, taught the great truth to which man's race must rise, or opened the gates of freedom to a few, those who are capable of rightly utilizing the freedom. They opened the gates of freedom. Implication is not all were fit to be given freedom, or open the gates of freedom to a few, imparting to our struggling world the light, the higher light. They breathed like spirits from time's dull yoke released. They themselves, these sages, had liberated themselves from the yoke of time, and they were comrades and vessels of the cosmic force, using a natural mastery like the sun. The sun shining above has a spontaneous mastery over creation. So these sages also, they had a natural mastery which they utilized for the world, for the words in their charge. Their speech, their silence was a help to earth. Not only what they said, not only what they uttered, that we can understand, that could be of help to the earth, but their silence also was a help to the earth. They communicated not only in words, but also in silence, perhaps more effectively in silence. A magic happiness flowed from their touch. If they touched anything or anyone physically, there was an enchanted happiness. Oneness was sovereign in that sylvan peace, in that spot where these sages lived and the youngsters grew up. There was a sylvan peace. A peace that is natural to a peaceful forest. And there oneness was sovereign. Everywhere there was no division. All was one. Life was one. The wild beast joined in friendship with its prey. Anywhere else, the wild beast would have killed its prey and eaten it up. But here, it joins in friendship with its prey. That is the compelling effect of peace and purity. The wild beast joined in friendship with its prey, persuading the hatred and the strife to cease. The hatred and the strife which are natural to division and hostility, they were persuaded to cease. The love that flows from the one mother's breast healed with their hearts the hard and wounded world. This love which flows from the one Divine Mother's breast flowed through these hearts of these sages and healed this hard and wounded world. That is, these sages radiated the healing touch of the Divine Mother's love. Others, now another category, others escaped from the confines of thought to where mind motionless sleeps, waiting lights birth. That is, they are doing their yoga of the mind. They break through the limitations of thought and ascend to a region where mind is still, silent, waiting for the birth of the light, and came back. These people, these yogis, came back quivering with the nameless force. As they are waiting for the light, they receive a nameless force whose vibrations make them quiver, drunk with the wine of lightning in their cells. What they receive is so great, so powerful, that it is as if in their very cells of the body is full of wine of lightning. There is light and there is power, and they are intoxicated. Intuitive knowledge leaping into speech. Intuition starts functioning in them, and spontaneously it erupts into speech. Hearing the subtle voice that clothes the heavens. There is a subtle voice which covers the body of heaven, and they are able to hear, catch the sound of that subtle voice carrying the splendor that has lit the suns. They sang infinity's names and deathless powers, these rishis, the yogis. They sing the names of the infinite and the names of the deathless powers, the gods and goddesses, in meters that reflect the moving world. This is the famous idea of the Sanskrit creators, that each meter in which they compose or in which their poetry flows is a miniature reflection of the vast rhythm in which the world moves. There is an intimate relation between these chandas and the varities, the large movements of the universe. So he says, in meters that reflect the moving worlds, sights, sound waves, breaking from the soul's great deeps, from the deeper, profound regions of the soul, the sound waves of sight. Now, how can sight have sound waves? It is a subtle sight, which is one with sound. Some lost to the person and his trip of thought. That is, the personality is extinguished. The person is no more. They become impersonal. That's the way of knowledge, jnanin. Some lost to the person and his strip of thought. What he thinks is only a strip of knowledge. The knowledge is vast. So they do away with the strip of thought. In a motionless ocean of impersonal power, sat mighty. In that impersonal ocean, they sit powerful, visioned with the infinite's light. They see in the light of the infinite, not in the vision of the finite, or comrades of the everlasting will, companions of the everlasting, the eternal will of God, surveyed the plan of the past and future time. From that vantage position, they surveyed the whole map of the past and future time. Some, still others, winged like birds out of the cosmic sea and vanished into a bright and featureless vast. They didn't bother to come back. They didn't bother to see with that light or become comrades of the everlasting will for the world. But like birds coming out of the cosmic ocean and vanishing in a bright and featureless vast, they vanished. Some silent, some, though they did not participate in the world movement, though they did not take active part in the activities of the world, some silent watched the universal dance or helped the world by world indifference. Even their indifference towards the world was a source of help to the world. The very fact that they were looking at the world gave help, gave power to the world movement. Some watched no more. Some didn't even watch. Some totally disappeared. Some watched in silence. Some watched no more because they were merged in a lonely self. They were not merged in the cosmic self, but in their individual lonely self, absorbed in the trance from which no soul returns. They were absorbed in the samadhi, from where, that type of samadhi, from where it is not possible for the soul to return. Some watched no more, merged in a lonely self, absorbed in the trance from which no soul returns. All the occult word lines forever closed. They had gone so much beyond that all the pathways and highways of the world were closed for them, shut. The chains of birth and person cast away. And some others, some uncompanioned, reached the ineffable. Some had totally rejected all companionship, not only with humans, but with thoughts, with emotions, with ideals. They had wiped out everything, and they reached the ineffable. So, here is a classic description of the different types of spiritual victories that are open to man, that is to the human being. So you would read it again and again, mark those portions and note those who disappear in the ineffable, those who stand aloof but watch, those who go but return. So all that for your mental clarification, I would suggest that you write down those lines separately and look through again and again, so that in the mind you have a clear idea of the different types of spiritual achievements that he sketches here in these 3 pages. And among all these, as floats a sunbeam through a shady place, the golden virgin in her caravan car came gliding among meditation seats. They were all meditating, and her carriage, her car, comes sliding without making much noise. It is not driving but gliding. Often, now here are again images. As she comes, it is evening, and the cattle which had been taken for grazing, they are coming back, and her car meets them, says, often in twilight, mid returning troops of cattle, thickening with the dust the shades, when the loud day had slipped below the verge. Loud day, that is, man makes unnecessary noise during his activities of the day. So the day is always loud, trumpeting. He says, when the loud day had slipped below the verge, the day has set. Arriving in a peaceful hermit grove, she arrives. As the evening begins, as the dusk begins, arriving in a peaceful hermit grove, she rested, drawing around her like a cloak its spirit of patient muse and potent prayer. In that hermit grove, there is an atmosphere of prayer, but potent prayer, not mechanical prayer, and patient muse, contemplation, dwelling patiently, not impatient for the fruit or the solution. And that spirit of prayer and muse, she draws around her. That is, she gets into the spirit of the hermitage and sleeps. She says, she goes to rest. She rested, drawing round her like a cloak, in a spirit of patient muse and potent prayer.